So, good morning, everyone. Jeff, do you need to say anything before we get started?
Nope, I'm all good. Nope. If you want me to, I will, but I don't need to.
Okay, no, it's fine. So I'm pretty sure everybody that's on knows me. I'm Carolyn Leaf, and this is Simpler Living's third in a series of 4 creation care forums, celebrating the earth and inviting our deeper care of creation. This morning, we have a panel of members of Simpler Living here at the Cathedral who will share their involvement in various ways in both the parish and the diocese and the greater community, but primarily the Cathedral and the diocese. So this morning's presenters will be Erika Morgan. Well, wait a second, I should probably start with a prayer. We'll have Richard Leaf is going to do the prayer, and then I'll introduce everybody. Okay. I have to switch them.
There we are. Good morning, everyone. This is hymn 580, and I'm going to use it as a prayer. And 580, under Christian responsibility, I'm going to read the first verse and the fourth verse as our prayer. Let us pray. God, who stretched the spangled heavens, infinite in time and place, flung the suns in burning radiance through the silent fields of space. We, your children, in your likeness, share inventive powers with you. Great Creator, still creating, show us what we yet may do. As each far horizon beckons, may it challenge us anew, children of creative purpose, serving others, honoring you. May our dreams prove rich with promise, each endeavor well begun. Great Creator, give us guidance till our goals and yours are one. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Erika has been a member of St. Paul's Cathedral for about, Diane?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you were going to do the land acknowledgement. I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Yep. I will. And then I'll introduce everybody. Thank you, Diane. Glad I saw your hand waving. We live on lands that are not our own. We acknowledge that we live on the traditional territories of the Kumeyaay people. We seek to live in respect, peace, and right relations, and are mindful of the broken covenants and promises made to and with Indigenous peoples around the world. By making a land acknowledgement, we are honoring the land and the Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years and continues still. We seek to remember that we belong to the land and to each other. Okay. Erika Morgan has been a member of St. Paul's for about 10 years. She's been on the Altar Guild and volunteers at Women Together when we can be together, and has been a longtime supporter and member of Simpler Living. She actually founded Maine Interfaith Power and Light in the year 2000. St. Paul's Cathedral is a member of Southern California Interfaith Power and Light. And she's been working with the diocese, and we're looking forward to hearing her report about that. Joan Reese is, I'm sorry, Joan, I don't know how long you've been at the Cathedral, but she's a pediatrician and has worked with the San Diego Regional Center for probably decades. Before becoming involved with Simpler Living, she headed the medical team that went to what was then Dorcas House and now Vita Hofen for several years. And as member of Simpler Living, she's working with St. Paul's Cathedral on building and grounds and landscaping. And Diane is one of the co-conveners of Simpler Living and has been doing that for about 2 years. She has been an environmental activist for since 1991, working in Illinois and the Pax Christi USA National Council, chair of Global Restoration, and with 350.org. Here at least, and probably other places, I can. Anyway, she is also working with the Diocesan Task Force on Creation Care, and we'll hear more about that. So at this point then, Erika, I would invite you to share with us. And if you have questions, put them in a chat and we'll entertain questions when the panel has completed their presentations. Erika?
Great. Yes, thank you very much, Carolyn, and Simpler Living for this invitation. I'm going to share my screen here, assuming I can figure out how to make this work seamlessly. I hope you can see that screen now.
Yes.
Because I can barely see you as part of the problem. So, okay, great. So I wanted to start out with the theme of this series. What is the challenge, actually? What do we have to do? And sort of orient us in all of this information. And of course, one of the challenges is just to get through the news each week, because this week there were like 3 different things. You know, I started the week by reading that California September 2020 wildfires burned over 4 million acres, caused 32 deaths directly, but over between 1,200 and 3,000 deaths from toxic smoke. And the paper said that this level of wildfire activity wasn't forecast to occur until 2050. Another article talked about the Doomsday Glacier, so-called because of the amount of meltwater it represents, and the fact that the temperatures underneath the glacier are warm enough that the glacier is melting there as well. It's really, the researcher said, being attacked by the ocean from all sides. And then the last one, can everybody hear me all right? I hope so.
Yes, I think we all
Please,
need
everybody mute.
we need to mute. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
please.
it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last one was an article from the Guardian about a study in the UK that reported that 97% of the planet is no longer ecologically intact. And what they mean by that is that in a slab of the ecosystem in a given place, whether all the species you would expect to find there are there. And the answer is no, they're not. Only 3% of the globe remains ecologically intact. This accumulating scary news just it may motivate, but it may also scare, but mostly it just puts it in context what we have to do. The bottom line is it's up to us. If we don't change, and this is the last decade when we can do anything to really mitigate how bad this is going to be, if we don't change, there's going to be a tremendous amount about this planet that changes around us and that we will no longer be able to do anything about. We must cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by the end of the decade. And if we don't, there will gradually become more and more places on this planet where humans just can't live, and not to mention all the other species that can't live there either. So I was asked to speak about one thing that we can do to rise to this challenge. And so this is the work that I have been doing with the diocese since 2019. It is a partnership with Fellowship Energy Finance. Fellowship is a specialty solar finance company that exists to focus on and support and finance solar development in faith community. And the picture on the right is St. James in Richmond, Virginia. This was the first church that Fellowship did with the Episcopal Church Building Fund. I like this picture because the vaulted ceiling reminds me so much of our cathedral. And the bottom picture is what's on their roof right now. It's a 50 kilowatt system that Fellowship financed for them. There are several components of this program, and some of them go right back to the search criteria that we use in founding the program. First one, nobody puts up any money. Every time I mention solar to anyone in the faith community, say, oh, well, we don't have enough money to do that right now. The answer is you don't need any money. There is no upfront investment required by either the church or the diocese. And why is that? Because solar has gotten so relatively cheap that the finance company will buy it for you, and you pay them back, and you through the savings on the energy bill, and still save money from the beginning. From day one was our criteria. Fellowship does all the work. This is not a situation where the churches have to evaluate different bidders and decide whether they're reputable and how long they're going to be in business. No, Fellowship will do all of that. They will do the design work and bid the project. They will do the engineering, all of the package is complete, such that at the time the church accepts the package, if they do, they're inches away from contracting. All of the players involved, the installer and Fellowship on the finance end, and any engineering work or any specialty work that's needed, has all been pre-negotiated and is down to the contract level, so that the project can then go forward very quickly the minute the deal is concluded. The best part is what's in the financing. And the strategy here is that we are doing something collectively that churches would have a difficult time doing individually. Collectively, it's the diocese credit that's underpinning these deals. They, as a group, their financial statements come forward and work with or show to the financing entity what the power of the group is. Excuse me, something cat related just happened, but I think we're okay. In any event, by doing it collectively, the financing can be more attractive than an individual church could find. Most individual churches have a hard time getting financing of any sort. They might get a solar offer, but no help financing it for a variety of reasons that are overcome by this arrangement. So that's the core description of the program itself. So the next question is, can we solarize the cathedral? And the answer is St. Paul's is on the path already. I have a series of workshops that people go through. St. Paul's has formed a solar team in the Future Bound program and is already at work. Through their participation, they received an energy audit in 2020, and it found that the cathedral has done an excellent job already of upgrading the energy using equipment in the cathedral. Excellent, well done. So there were no energy audit recommendations to come from that effort. So now the solar team is addressing other issues and concerns of the parish, of the folks that they know and talk to about this sort of thing. And I look forward to next hearing where they are in a meeting on May 2nd. So meantime, the fellowship team is also at work using the energy audit results and the electrical usage history of the cathedral and to put together a solar design and financing offer that will include their best judgment of the size and the placement of the system, how best to offset the maximum amount of usage possible, and the best financing approach. And regardless of the details on this offer, which I haven't seen, no one has seen yet, the following will be true. There will be no upfront cost to the cathedral or to the diocese. The energy savings will be cut from day one from what they have been. The greenhouse gas emissions will also be cut dramatically, and they will stay that way for 25 to 40 years, or however long that system is there, and they accumulate as well. And the installation can happen quickly because it'll be that close to contract. In 2021, we could do this. So the timeline for this decision is up to the committee. It's up to the team to figure out who they need to talk to, who needs to be involved in making a final decision, and when we can go forward. So this is how this program works. And what it tells us is that we have it in our power to make some pretty big changes. Several of you may recognize the church in this picture right here. This is St. Margaret's in Palm Desert. And I forgot to tell you who the one on the other one is. This is Christ Church Coronado, another one in our diocese. Beautiful, small, traditional church, wonderful rooftop. And here is St. Margaret's, another example of a traditional sanctuary building and a good use of their roof. So my bottom line here, rising to the challenge, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of structural change, but we can do this, and we can start by changing the things we have control over. That's the buildings, of course, and the campus, which Joan is going to talk about, and the community within. I've been very excited about Jim Entall's book, and I really look forward to talking to him next week, because we need to work within our church communities to change our assumptions and our thinking, as well as to challenge and forgive and support each other in doing this very hard work. We have to grapple with the damage we've done, this generation has done, and what we need to do to change it. And there are a ton of other systems that need to be changed. We've talked already about banking and food last week, housing, transportation, all of these things we need to work on. One piece of good news is the electricity system is changing. It is already in the last 15 years, 50% lower emissions than it was in 2005. Now, some of that was, kind of a little bit of accounting errors, but whatever. How will we get to the next 50%? It will take the best collective effort across the board. So what do each of us need to do? First of all, we need to be smart buyers, because so much of this is not the direct use of fossil fuels. We can do that. That's the easy part. It's the indirect use of fossil fuels, the fossil fuels embedded in almost everything we currently use. The shampoo bottle this morning was driving me nuts. Yes, all of those things is embedded fossil fuels that have got to go as well. And we need to vote. We need to be informed voters for the systems changes and the people who will change them. So I guess the final word here is vote like your planet depends on it, because it does. Then lastly, it's possible. The diocese now has 12 solar churches out of 43. How close to 100% can we get? That's the list who are solar, the solar churches already there. I really look forward to adding the cathedral to that list. And that picture is St. Luke's. St. Luke's got their solar system earlier this last year, actually. They signed in August and it was done by the end of the year. So did the Episcopal Church Center. The ones at the top of the list are the ones that we got done last year. And I have 12 to 15 more churches in progress, including the cathedral. So I look forward to getting much closer to 100%. Thank you. That's it from me.
Thank you, Erika. That was very exciting, actually. Let's see, I'm trying to see how I could get, there I am. I just don't really need to look at myself, but to know for sure that I'm there. Very informative, thank you, and exciting to see what's happening in the diocese and with the cathedral. So thank you for sparking that challenge for us. So we'll move next to Joan Reese. Thank you, Joan. Unmute, Joan.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn, and thank you very much, Erika, for that excellent overview of your work with the diocese. It's exciting to know that the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego is showing real leadership in helping to make it possible for parishes to go solar and become a greater part of the solution to the climate emergency that we're facing. My charge this morning is to discuss how Simpler Living is working with cathedral leaders and staff to help hasten our commitment to being a greater part of the solution. About a year ago, Simpler Living was invited to provide representation on the recently established Buildings and Grounds Committee, which is how I began serving on that committee with backup from Phil Petrie. I view our role in part as a kind of emissary. I have shared with the committee our vision for the greening of the cathedral, and my screen sharing is not working. Why is, darn it. You know, I am, oh, I see, I'm clicking the wrong thing. Okay. Gotta move this out of the way. I'm sorry, this is blocking my view here. Let me just move that down. And I can go there. There, okay. So I practiced this last night and somehow it just didn't go as smoothly. Anyway, so I shared with the committee our vision for the greening of the cathedral. And for greening, by greening, we're not talking about decking the church with greens for Christmas, as delightful as that custom is, but rather, as you probably realize, green in the sense of environmental stewardship. And this is the statement that we shared with the buildings and grounds folks. The first paragraph, which I have on the screen now, provides an overview of Simpler Living's mission. And I'd like to focus on the middle paragraph, which I have here and which I'm going to put in a larger version so you can take a look at it while I'm talking. So you can see, in addition to striving to live more sustainably in our individual lives, we're also interested in assisting St. Paul's in doing everything it can. The national church and our diocese have made creation care a priority, and the cathedral is uniquely positioned, we think, to take a leadership role in the diocese and in the community at large. So how are we working to do this? Well, we're using a variety of approaches, and starting with energy efficiencies, as Erika mentioned, with the encouragement of the diocese, St. Paul's Cathedral is in the process of considering the advantages of a photovoltaic system or a solar array, including how it would be funded. We have a solar task force exploring this now. And just so you know, the members are Phil Petrie, Ross Sipple, John Will, myself, and then with staff of Kathleen Burgess and Bob Osley, who are participating. At the first meeting of the group, as Erika mentioned, she provided a presentation on the Diocesan Future Born Solar Initiative. Then an energy audit was done as an initial step, and we were really pleased to learn that the conservation measures already in place, such as the replacement of lighting with LEDs, were helping, and that there didn't really seem to be any low-hanging fruit left to address. The hope is to have completed this exploration and come up with recommendations before too much longer. We will be meeting with Erika again, and we're in the process of talking with other parishes that have gone solar, either through partnership with Fellowship Energy, or have self-funded their systems, and just to try to see how that's going for them. But I will say that I think the level of support is growing. So, I mean, that's very encouraging for us. And then another area that we've been working on is water efficiencies. And these can be both interior and exterior. And today I'm just going to briefly mention the things we've been doing with the exterior of the church. So the Buildings and Grounds Committee reviewed plans for some revisions of the planting and irrigation in the Queen's Courtyard, with particular attention to sustainability with respect to plant selection, water requirements, choice of irrigation and mulching. We're fortunate to have a member of the St. Paul's Choir who is a professional landscape designer volunteering his expertise. A new landscape committee was convened to renovate and oversee the Xeriscape garden that Gabe Hulbert had planted and executed as his Eagle Scout project a number of years ago. What we learned was as time went by, it was realized that it had not been properly maintained. It had become overgrown and the vision had been lost somewhat. The committee, on which I also serve together with Agnes West Kohler and with the help of the volunteer landscape designer, has been working to renovate and upgrade it and ensuring that water conservation issues are addressed. Another area, and Erika alluded to this, is purchasing choices. Decisions around purchasing choices can be very impactful with respect to sustainability. We are advocating for the need for consideration of the environmental impact of all purchases and acquisitions at the cathedral, from large one-time purchases to supplies that represent recurrent purchases. So the entire cradle to grave cycle of a product should be considered, from sustainable sourcing and manufacturing processes to transportation costs in terms of carbon footprint to expected lifespan. What will happen to the item at the end of that lifespan? Will it end up in the landfill? What about biodegradability, environmental toxicity, and so forth? Phil Petrie put together a really informative presentation on this whole concept for the Building and Grounds Committee, which kind of heralded the beginning of our involvement with that. These considerations, as I mentioned, should be applied to large one-time purchases. For example, the choice of wall and floor coverings, paint and finish, fixtures, lighting, and furnishings in the new St. Paul's Cathedral space in the Gray Star building under construction at 525 Olive Street. Similar considerations would apply for the proposed renovation of the Undercroft and also the Great Hall Kitchen. These issues have also been raised with respect to the acquisition of the chairs to replace the pews in the nave, including the plan for what will happen to the pews. And then also under consideration are consumable supplies that represent recurring purchases. Can such items be more sustainably sourced? Simpler Living members are taking the lead in assisting staff by researching these questions. We've started with a list of higher frequency items that Kathleen has very graciously put together and expect to be ready to report on this at the next Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. Something that will have to be addressed is the question of what are acceptable trade-offs between economic stewardship and environmental stewardship. I want to just end with recycling. A number of years ago, actually about 17 years ago, St. Paul's didn't recycle at all. At that time, you may remember in San Diego, while residential customers could take advantage of curbside recycling through the city's waste management system and had been able to do so for quite a while, businesses and institutions had to make different arrangements. It was through advocacy on the part of Simpler Living, and Carolyn and Richard will remember this, I believe, that the cathedral was encouraged to start recycling at least mixed paper, including the service leaflets and so forth. A baby step, but nonetheless important. This conversation continues, and we still have quite a way to go. During non-pandemic times of gathering, while paper is being pretty consistently recycled, the commitment to recycle other appropriate items, such as plastic and aluminum serveware, unfortunately falls way short, and St. Paul's Cathedral sends too much to the landfill. This is especially compelling when you keep in mind that the way we as a society produce, consume, and dispose of our products and our food accounts for 42% of all US greenhouse gas emissions. Think of it, 42%. So what about composting? We will be exploring this as well, how this might be done at St. Paul's, with the goal of keeping disposable, compostable utensils and food waste out of the landfill. And there is now a requirement for mandatory recycling for all businesses, both for-profit and nonprofit. Does St. Paul's generate enough waste per week during quote unquote normal times to be included? You need to, a business has to generate 4 cubic yards per week to be included in this mandatory rule. But even if not, should St. Paul's comply in its role as a steward of God's creation? And I just want to close with the final paragraph of our greening of the cathedral statement, our hope for the future, a future in which all decisions in our own lives and at St. Paul's Cathedral include faith-filled and serious consideration of environmental stewardship for now and for future generations. And I hope that you'll consider joining us. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn it over to our final presenter this morning, Diane Lopez Hughes, and I need to figure out how to get out of screen sharing here. Stop sharing. There. Okay.
Thank you, Joan. Diane, you're on. Unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted and I'm going to share the screen, and thinking about at the last minute not having a slide presentation, I thought I would just share. Oops, I'm sorry. I don't want to share that.
Oh, well, it's
Was that-
beautiful.
Was that Earth? Okay, because
Yes.
I was seeing something else. So I do want to share that. Golly gee. The last climate change solution this morning is about something most definitely within our control: the importance of connection with creation, specifically connecting community for prayer, education, ideas, support, and encouragement, and to take action. As the Creation Care Ministry of St. Paul's Episcopal Cathedral, Simpler Living has been connecting within its ministry and among members of St. Paul's and the community to pray, educate, share ideas, and offer support and encouragement, and act. Most of you know the work of Simpler Living, and Joan and Erika really gave a good reminder of some of the work that we do and the importance of each volunteer in Simpler Living and in doing the work, actually. For those of you who don't know much about Simpler Living, we have linked our years of efforts on the Cathedral website. And I'm going to give a brief announcement here. The Cathedral has just released our Simpler Living webpage on the website. So please have a look when you can. And I'm going to give a shout out to everyone who gave early feedback, and especially Wayne Ream, our Cathedral communication guru. He put the whole thing together. Back to our work. From supporting Cathedral divestment from fossil fuel funds, to taking families on an environmental tour of Balboa Park, screening environmentally themed movies with discussion and potluck meals, to co-sponsoring a table at Earth Day fairs, offering resources for living simply, to gathering at garden retreats. Thank you, Cindy. We have been present and involved at the Cathedral and will continue for many years to come. We talk about damage to the damage created by our individual carbon footprints in the overconsumption of fossil fuels in our daily lives. Thinking about the years to come, Simpler Living is talking about and acting on ways instead to increase our creation footprint. We are all aware that our communities must step up our commitment to caring for creation, as Erika gave us the dire statistics, and that's our reality. We need to step up as true caregivers, caring in a mutual relationship, not overlords. While there's little time left to reverse the worst effects of the climate emergency, there is much that draws us towards hope. Since last summer, Simply Living has been meeting with the head of the newly forming Environmental Stewardship Committee of St. Bart's to discuss collaboration and explore ways that our congregations might work together and with others so that such collaborations might increase our creation footprint. And later in the year, we learned that the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego had made a commitment to connection in appointing a co-missioner of creation care, Diane Rios. With Diane, the new creation care task force of the diocese has been meeting regularly since late February to plan activities and link the diocese to resources that will energize Episcopalians to take more concrete steps in increasing our creation footprint. The Creation Care Task Force has started by focusing on food justice. Other work groups have formed, one of which is planning for the Good News Festival from December 2nd to 4th at the Town and Country Hotel with presiding Bishop Michael Curry. Through worship, film screenings and discussion, an informal information fair, and concrete activities, hopefully we'll even have a rally, perhaps a presence outside SDG&E, maybe. I'm not sure, it hasn't been decided yet. But something that will show us that we are not just about education, but also about action. How can you be involved? Many of you are already taking steps. In fact, I'm sure all of you are. But you might consider increasing your creation footprint a little bit more. Share what you learned with family, friends, and neighbors. If you haven't already, sign the Episcopal Creation Care Pledge, or go to sustainableislandhome.org to track your carbon footprint. As Joe mentioned, you can also join Simply Living. Come to a meeting and find out what we're about. You can also join the Episcopal Diocese of San Diego Creation Care Task Force. And there are a number of action-oriented environmental groups: San Diego 350, the Sierra Club, Stay Cool for Grandkids, Green Faith, Interfaith Light and Power. And most of these are listed or will be listed on our webpage. And continue to pray for the hard work of caring for this planet. I know we talk about prayer and goodwill is not enough, but I think that's where it starts. And it's important for us as a faith community to focus on prayer. Jim Antal shared with us through his book, and will share with us more next week, about the importance of hearing from the pulpit. And we'll throw out that challenge as well. I know we do, and we did today, but we hope to even more. So, and we appreciate what we do here. I have to add that as well. Speaking of Jim Antal, next week, his theme, Joyfully Embracing Our Vocation to Restore God's Gift of Creation, will provide a brief review of the state of God's creation. And he will suggest that God is calling our generation to joyfully embrace being born at such a time as this, a time when our commitments, actions, and initiatives will impact the lives of countless generations. And he wants us to know that there'll be plenty of time for discussion. So thank you for being here for our panel, and take it away, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you so much, Diane. Before we get too much farther along, I want to invite you, if you're not doing anything this afternoon at 4:30, there's an intergenerational movie evening with our youth that will be led by Maya, and we'll be watching the movie Wall-E. Simply Living did a movie night with this before several years ago, which I believe I missed, but so this is my opportunity to get to see it. And we're going to be discussing adults who come to it. We'll have a separate breakout room for more I guess, sophisticated discussion, you could say. The kids will be in their own breakout room for discussion, but we'll be beginning the movie probably around 4:45, but the whole event will start at 4:30. And you can come to that through the, let's see, there's a Zoom. In just a minute, I'll look and check and to see whether that's on through the cathedral or a separate Zoom. But anyway, if you're interested, I can direct you to that Zoom. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to come to that. And of course, as Diane said, next week, Jim Antal, I feel so strongly that it's not only, our world that's calling us, it's a moral and spiritual work that we have to do. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that next week. Some of us participated in the Lenten discussions with this book that was led by Diane and other diocesan people. And I just like to say it's so encouraging to meet with other people throughout the diocese. I don't feel like I'm alone in my efforts. It's really encouraging. And so Diane listed all the different resources that we have. So just continue to encourage you to search those out and make use of them. Okay, I need to go to my chat. Oh, good. Jeff put the Wally information. Thanks, Jeff. Chat. Chat's different on my tablet than it is. Okay. Do you have any questions, please? Lots of affirmations here. Great job of the speakers. Okay, any questions?
Well, we can also take comments, I think.
Sure. Yes, comments and questions. We can just take them, raise your hand, or just speak up. We don't have a lot of people. So go ahead if you do, or you want to respond to any of the speakers. Gee, everybody, let's speak up all at once.
Phil had his hand up.
I have a
Okay.
comment. A very good presentation to you all. Yeah, Mary's applauding. And I just wanted to talk about, change and how change happens and sort of sticking with it, whether you're an individual or whether you're an institution like the cathedral. And I'm going to brag on Mary here. So she's the one that basically pressured our household to compost. And she bought us a little metal tin, and it sits right next to the kitchen sink. And when we got a big compost in the backyard, and I supported it, but I have to admit, there were times that I dragged my feet a bit and was resented having to put the things in there right away. And it would get too full and start to, overflow. And when are you going to get rid of this? So anyway, all of which is to say that change can be hard, right? Change has its difficult parts, but it's important to do. And then it's important to stick with it. That's the key. So anyway, that's my little plug.
It is hard to stick with it. And am I on here? I have to go back and forth. I want to relate about sticking with it and the challenge for recycling, like here at the church, because you have to keep reminding people what the system is or what it will be. And several years ago, I was working with Camp Spirit, the Vacation Bible School, and the choir boys were having their camp at the same time, and we were having lunch, and the blue bin and the black bin or whatever color were right next to each other, and the kids would come over and dump everything in the blue bin, all their dirty plates of food and whatever. So I took that advantage of that moment to say, hey guys, what do you know about the blue bin? And we talked a little bit about, I know you know about recycling, but so it's just constant. We really can't let up with it. It's a challenge. But I think particularly if kids grow up with it, then it'll get to be easier. It'll get to be more normal. And so we're looking forward to doing more with recycling.
Bishop Carey had an interesting comment. We were talking about systemic racism. through the Sacred Ground program. And he says change is difficult, and but you know what is right. It doesn't feel good. It challenges you in many different ways. And so his phrase is, do it anyway. Do it anyway. And by doing it anyway, you get yourself into that mindset and spiritual direction that you wouldn't have if you just didn't do it anyway. So that's good for me. I say, do it anyway, Richard.
You also reminded us about, indirectly, about the intersectionality of this work, the climate emergency. We talk about immigration, poverty, economic issues, wars. I mean, they're all interwoven, and it's really important for us because we do care as Episcopalians and people of faith about all of the social justice issues. And sometimes people think, oh, I've got to focus on this one thing. It's all connected, which makes it harder. But that's why we're here together, for community. You know, we can support each other in this work, and more people are needed.
And I just wanted to jump on that about the intersectionality part. One of the things that's becoming really clear to me is the justice imperative in all of this work. Even, and you know, you think the energy system, what has that got to do with justice? Well, the way we've built the energy system is very unjust. And some would argue that the ability to change the energy system, which we do have, is a fulcrum that will enable us to begin really working on justice across the board in more systemic ways. So I've really been thinking a lot about that. And it takes the shape of our, you know, what our electricity bills affordable and who has access to clean energy. Some will argue that poor people don't have access to clean energy and want to make it more expensive to give them the money. The other answer is make it cheaper so that everyone has access to clean energy. And that, I hope, is the track we're on.
Erika, could you give us an update on SDG&E and alternative energy sources or systems? What's the latest on that?
Well, SDG&E, like all of the utilities, would rather we just bought our power from them, because then they could decide where to build the generation. And so they make it more difficult for people to have rooftop solar than others would like. We want to make it really easy to have rooftop solar. So there's a lot on the policy front that's happening right now, and some of it is getting really very important and fundamental to the rights of future solar owners. If the utilities had their way, they would make it very much more expensive for any future solar rooftop systems to be built. In addition, present solar users, people who have systems on their houses right now, or anybody here have a solar system on their house right now?
Yes.
Yes, because you're at risk. You're at risk. There is a bill in the legislature that our very own, Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher has sponsored that would change that. It would take away the compensation that you currently get for your system. So there are some fundamental things happening, and it gets back to the fact that widespread rooftop solar threatens the utilities. They don't want it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can maybe this is not the right forum for this, but I'm just wondering if you can talk, one of you can talk about the policy changes that are proposed in the whole grid, and I'm thinking this administration and shift to energy. Are they real substantive changes that affect the justice issues you mentioned, Erika? And I'm also just thinking about how climate change affects that. I'm from Texas, as I know Marshall is, and this winter was so hard for Texas because the energy system just wasn't built for the winter they had. So I don't know if you can talk about that at all.
It's a really good question, Jeff, and very timely, and you know, one that could be its own topic. But what I will say is that Texas has an extreme form of electricity deregulation. California started the trend to deregulation in the late 90s and really messed it up. I was in Massachusetts when we tried to copy it. We didn't copy California exactly. So there are some states that have a different form of deregulation than Texas. Texas did it its own complete way. And as a result, they don't have the kind of market protections that other states have for extreme events. And they don't plan for cold weather. These are things, both these things need to change. But the topics are timely and important, and what's happening in the federal infrastructure bill will affect them, because there is a lot of emphasis there on grid development, and how the grid gets developed is an important question, because right now the development of the transmission grid is what's driving our rates through the roof. The utilities would have you believe it's solar. It's not. It's transmission costs. And so there is a big fork in the road ahead about whether we're going to continue to put money in a centralized system that the utilities control, or whether we're going to continue to build the decentralized system that local solar allows us to do now. And I can tell you that the justice implications of both of these are significantly different. And there are those who argue that if we don't get ahead of the game, we're going to rebuild, you know, the new clean energy system, making the same unjust mistakes that we made previously, marginalizing communities of concern who don't get to say anything when a new, you know, generation system is located. And that could be desert covering utility scale solar could be just as harmful and just as discriminatory.
Yes.
We don't think about how we do the changes to the system that are needed. So that, anyway, I apologize for going on too long. It's a good question.
Thank you. I think it was important to
I
hear.
think may we ask Phil for a few comments about, we were talking about other groups that we can connect with that do focus on action. And I'm wondering if Phil can share a little bit about the good work of 350, because they're doing work with SDG&E and the franchise and all kinds of things. So Phil, could you share a little?
Sure. And so what I'll focus on actually is we have a Sempra campaign, Sempra and SDG&E. So for those of you that don't know, Sempra Energy, which is based here in San Diego, is the parent company of SDG&E, and then there's 4 other utilities that it owns. And the bottom line is that Sempra is a fracked gas infrastructure company. They sold off all their renewable assets about 2 years ago, so that they could really go all in on what they call natural gas. But again, there's not much natural about natural gas. And the issue in a way with natural gas or fracked gas, because most of it is fracked, is that it's almost completely methane. And methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. Over the short term, methane is about 80 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than CO2. And again, what I like to say is over the short term is what we have in terms of, as Erika pointed out very well, is what we have to really bring emissions down. We basically have this next kind of 9 years to really work. So what San Diego 350 and the Raise the Alarm team that I'm part of are trying to do is make it clear to the public that Sempra is essentially a frack gas infrastructure company. But that's what they do, all greenwashing aside. Not to say they may not treat their employees well. There may be some good things going on there, but basically they're all in on fossil fuels. And in a sense, one other piece to this is that because SDG&E charges the highest rates of any municipal utility electric energy company in California, in a sense, we are funding, the ratepayers are funding this fossil fuel infrastructure. So again, Sempra doesn't do actual fracking, but they build all the pipelines and the export terminals. Their big thing is to take natural gas, export it to the east, where there's going to be a big market. And their selling point is that it's better than coal. Maybe in the short term, maybe not better than coal. And the bottom line too is once you've built those pipelines, you're going to want to use them and the export terminals for as long as you can get some profit out of it. And that's probably quite a long time. So we will actually be demonstrating in front of Semper. We're going to have a big car caravan. I probably shouldn't say too much about it because it's somewhat stealth at this point, so not telling Semper. But you know, we try to do as much of that as we can to get out there and sort of shift the needle on the dialogue so people kind of know what's really going on. So that's my piece.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
3 minutes.
Yep, it's almost time for church. I see a couple of people are leaving. If you are coming to church, I invite you to bring something green to bring in for Creation Care Sunday. If you don't have anything green or you forget, I have several sprigs of sage. And
Very-
it's sitting right here.
Very powerful.
Yeah, so you can
lovely.
pick something up before you go into the Great Hall. So anything else, please? We look forward to having you join us next Sunday for our final Creation Care Forum. And thank you so much to our panel of Erika, Joan, and Diane. And okay. Diane's headed to church. Yep, good. We'll see you, anyone who can make it, see you here.